over there!
I know what it is.
Alcatraz Island rises abruptly from the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. Formerly a military fortress, Alcatraz became America's most notorious maximum security prison, housing such incorrigibles as Al Capone and babyface Nelson. No prisoner ever escaped from Alcatraz alive. When it closed in 1963, the spirits of some may have remained behind, forever imprisoned within its massive walls.
I've heard that the hallway directly behind me, Broadway, is haunted, and that if you sleep on the cells, you'll hear the cell doors opening and closing all night long, and that they actually move. Well, I didn't believe it. One night I spend the night, I sleep on Broadway. All night long I heard the mechanism that would operate the cell door. And one security guard told us that he was patrolling. He's the only one on the island. He had gone down a flight of stairs into the shower room. He got to the bottom, he stopped, and then he felt this hand touch him on the back of the neck. Jumped, panicked, looked around. Nobody was there. We would have fun greeting him for the next couple of weeks. You walk up behind him quietly and put a hand on him, and hair would go straight up.
Cell Block D held the prison hospital and served as an isolation unit for prisoners like the Birdman of Alcatraz, Robert Stroud, whose cell, many say, is haunted.
There have been ghosts seen. There have been mediums that have been up in the hospital and had seances and heard voices, had the presence of a spirit. There is also hydrotherapy, a room where they put people into the bathtubs. Prisoners, if they became emotionally upset, would be put on a table, cold towels wrapped around them, and put basically into a trance.
No prisoner was ever executed at Alcatraz, though there were 8 murders and 5 suicides. Still, unexplained events continue to take place.
I know several people who refuse to be out here after dark because the voices start talking to them. I've never seen any ghosts out here, but there are nights that I've walked down the hallway and you almost hear prisoners in their cell brushing their teeth, combing their hair, the squeaking of the beds, those type sounds, even when there's nobody here but me just walking around.
How and why does a place become haunted? And if ghosts exist, why? These questions have been asked, but never answered. In San Jose, California, visiting ghosts must navigate through a Victorian mansion, built according to blueprints received from the spirit world. In the Winchester house, unwanted ghosts travel at their own risk. Twisting corridors, a maze of stairways, and doors to nowhere were designed to confuse evil spirits. Do the spirits of the night still visit? Employees report ghostly visages and other unexplained phenomena.
The first time I was actually alone in the house, and I wandered off into one of the closed-off rooms. I guess it was one of the servants' bedrooms, and I let the door close behind me, and it felt the air pressure got really heavy in there, and it felt like the walls were getting closer, and I had to get out of that room really quickly. A lot of people have claimed to seen lights in that room, and there's no electricity in the room at all. And I hear, footsteps and creaking boards and whisperings whenever I'm cleaning in the house or whenever I close in the house, and there's nobody in the house when we're closing it.
The mansion was built by Sarah Winchester, heir to the Winchester firearms fortune.
William Winchester.
William.
When a Boston medium informed Sarah that the deaths of her husband and only child were brought about by evil spirits slain by Winchester rifles, she was advised to head west. In California, Sarah transformed a simple farmhouse into a mansion for the spirit world. Here, she was safe. For as long as Sarah kept building, she would be protected from vengeful spirits. For 38 years, 24 hours a day, construction continued, even after losing 3 stories to the San Francisco earthquake in 1906. Today, the house sprawls over 6 acres of landscaped grounds. It contains 160 rooms, 47 fireplaces, 13 bathrooms, 52 skylights, and nearly 10,000 windows. Tiffany glass, rare woods, and other building materials of the highest quality were used extensively, adding to building costs that totaled nearly $5.5 million when construction ended after Sarah's death in 1922. Midnight until 2 a.m. were the ghosting hours at the Winchester house. During this time, Sarah contacted the spirit world for guidance.
We've had some seances in the past where we've had different psychics come in and conduct a seance to see if they could raise the spirits of either Sarah Winchester or anybody else who was involved in the construction of the house. And we've had a couple of psychics say that there are spirits in the house, 3 spirits to be exact.
There was a seance held a few years back inside the Daisy bedroom, and from what I've heard, a woman named Antoinette May and another man were staying alone in the house that night. And about late in the evening, the woman started to hear organ music coming from outside of the Daisy bedroom where they were staying. Well, the man didn't hear it. That is until he opened the door to the Daisy bedroom. And when he opened the door, he could hear it, only she couldn't hear it anymore. They closed the door for good, and that apparently disgruntled the spirits, as the next thing you knew, the floor was shaking very violently in the Daisy bedroom. The next morning, there were no reports of an earthquake, but there were 2 broken keys on the pipe organ down here in the Grand Ballroom.
Some believe Sarah Winchester still haunts the house.
The tour guide had said he came in to the room where Mrs. Winchester died, and he noticed there was an indent in a pillow. And he fluffed the pillow back up, and he came back a little while later with the tour, and the indent was back in the pillow.
For Sarah, the Blue Room was the soul of the mansion. Here she made contact with the spirit world. No one ever entered the room while Sarah lived. Some believe it's still a doorway for visitors from another dimension.
So what I'll do is go up and get the primer and...
we were coming to work, and we were talking about what we were going to be doing. Skylight. And I turned around and looked down the hallway, and I seen a man standing there. And then he disappeared. We went down to see if somebody was in the house, and there was nobody there. I never believed in spirits or ghosts or anything.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't either.
But I do have a belief now that there is something in this house.
Far to the south of Lilydale, New York, the waters of the Mississippi arrive at a city with a soul and character all its own. New Orleans is a place where time seems to stand still, where the past mixes with the present, the living with the dead. Voodoo arrived with slaves from Africa and the Caribbean. Today, it is practiced much as it was then, with rituals and ceremonies to call forth the spirits of the dead. A frequent guest is the spirit of Marie Laveau, the feared and respected queen of voodoo. Marie was said to be over 100 years old when she died, and as beautiful as ever. Today, her grave has become a shrine to her many followers. who pay homage by leaving small gifts and strange markings on her tombstone. A few minutes from the French Quarter is the Southern Nights Bed and Breakfast, the site of a series of paranormal occurrences.
There were such strange things that went on when I first bought the house. I would hear sounds and whispers and voices. My housekeeper, my son, would come to me and say, "Did you call me?" And I hadn't.
When we first moved in here, that's when I first started to notice the first strange occurrences. A few times when I walked in different rooms, the hair would stand up on the back of my neck as if someone was in the room with me. When I look around, no one's there. I discounted it as something, maybe it's just in my imagination.
It's a sense that somebody is there. An overwhelming sense that you're not alone in a room. The cold spots, the cold places where it's just cold around you, you can feel it. I always felt something very strange when I would go through the dining room. It was like the air was heavier here than it was in the other parts of the house. It was like I couldn't breathe.
A few other times we had mainly mechanical and electrical phenomena. Lights would turn on. Alarm clocks that would set off when I had made sure that all the alarm clocks were disconnected. Doors locked themselves. Doors which I had just opened just a few minutes earlier and no one else was up there with me.
And then I started having these experiences with my guests who would tell me these incredible stories.
To better understand the strange occurrences, Judy contacted Larry Montz, a parapsychologist and paranormal investigator.
Our actual organization is the International Society for Paranormal Research, and we have what we call Hauntings Today investigations and ghost expeditions. We conduct scientific investigations of phenomena and try to determine, using scientific methods, what's going on.
Larry sent a staff member to investigate the haunting.
And I said, "Why don't you go around and look at everything, check out all the rooms." So when she came back, she said, "Do you know you have an entity in the house?" I never thought about it, but then all of a sudden it really made sense. I think this is very definitely a haunted house.
What we'll do is go ahead and we'll start here and then proceed through each floor as we go.
Our particular organization is a little unique in the fact that we use a combination of scientists as well as psychic investigators.
When we get in the building, you just kind of start sensing what you feel. And then
we use equipment like cameras, thermal radiation, ultrasound, magnetometers for electromagnetic energy fields. Any device that we feel can maybe detect some type of phenomena. We have conducted numerous investigations in haunted hotels, just like the Bourbon Orleans Hotel here in the French Quarter in New Orleans.
There have been people walking by this particular guest room suite and have heard a little girl crying. Hotel managers proceed to go up there, knock on the door, no answer, walk in, no one's there.
The cook that used to work in the kitchen would be working at night, especially the third floor. He said you'd hear voices at night, people talking, things going across the room. He actually the lights went out one night and got slapped across the face and left a handprint on his face. He left and did not come back.
Actually, I've even had guests come to the front desk and tell me that in the middle of the night they were woken and heard the water running and got up and actually saw the water running, turned it off, got back in the bed, and have it happen 2 and 3 times during the night.
We talked about doing an investigation, and it was very much encouraged by the hotel, and that was when the people from Hauntings Today decided to come in and do the investigation.
When we first entered the property, of course, the psychic said that they were definitely feeling energy that was a little unusual as we walked in.
I get energy's impression up here, and then mostly coming from
the psychic investigators that we use, what they do is they actually give us additional information in a site. Scientifically, we can go in and detect at times different types of phenomena that might be occurring, but we can't tell you who the entity is or what's going on or what the entity looks like and so on, where the psychic investigative team has that ability.
I get the impression that this staircase is older, probably original to the building, this one.
As we proceeded to the ballroom area, we were able to get a number of unusual electromagnetic energy readings, as well as cold spots, which are pretty common to a haunting. We also experienced some poltergeist activity with one of the chandeliers that actually started to move.
Yeah,
do you feel that? Let's get a temperature reading.
The paranormal phenomena may be related to the hotel's rich and varied past. At different times, it was the home of St. Mary's Academy, St. John's Orphanage, and the famous Orleans Ballroom.
Psychically, one of the team members actually saw residual images of dances and balls that had taken place there in the past.
My information comes a lot of different ways. Sometimes I hear words, sometimes I'll feel emotions. Also, I use what's called the third eye, so a lot of times when I'm doing investigations, you'll see me with my eyes closed. What I'm doing is I'm kind of scouting the area for different energy and disruptions. Okay, I feel like there's somebody watching us, somebody behind us this way. Okay, get shots of that. It's here.
She's gone. We were able to actually locate several entities in this particular property on the investigation. One was a Confederate soldier and officer that did appear to us in a hallway.
You see that image down the hallway around the corner?
Yeah, and let's go. We kind of chased down the hallway, but weren't able to find him after that.
Others have also seen ghostly entities.
Doing turn down, which is turning the rooms down at night. They give you a list of vacant and rooms that you need to turn down. When you close the curtains at night, you look across the courtyard, and I saw a nun sitting in a window in a vacant room crying.
At first we had gotten kind of an impression, or a psychic impression, of a person standing all the way at the end of the hallway. And as we approached it, this nun appeared. And she turned quickly and moved through one of the doors of the room. And as we entered the room, of course, she disappeared.
Our nation's capital has experienced more than its share of hauntings and paranormal phenomena.
One of the reasons Washington is so fascinating as a haunted city is not only because of all the power that's been involved, past and present, and the forces, if you will, but also the people who have verified these sightings. Presidents and first ladies have seen ghosts, congressmen and senators. The most dramatic case was Her Imperial Majesty Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands. She was visiting the president, and she was put in the Lincoln bedroom. Very, very late at night, she heard a knocking at the door, and there stood Abraham Lincoln.
Even the U.S. Capitol is believed to be haunted.
When President Garfield was assassinated, it was after a long and spectacular trial of the assassin Charles Guiteau. And a guard going through the rotunda suddenly thought he saw Guiteau walking through there, and he gave chase. And suddenly he stopped and realized, wait a minute, Guiteau was executed last week. And the ghost disappeared.
The most haunted room in the Capitol is said to be Statuary Hall, once the chamber of the House of Representatives. Visitors report hearing the voice of John Quincy Adams passionately debating the issues of the day. And former guards claim that late one night, the statues came to life and danced a ghostly minuet. But the most alarming story is of a demonic cat who appears in the sub-basement of the Capitol near the tomb built for George Washington. The cat's appearance has foreshadowed national tragedies like the death of FDR in 1945 and the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963.
High above the bluffs of the Missouri River lies the town of Atchison, Kansas. It is the birthplace of Amelia Earhart. And the home of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. Atchison is a quiet town with brick-lined streets, huge oak trees, and old Victorian mansions. But there are those who say that behind this beautiful setting lies a dark secret. Ghosts are everywhere. Atchison is known as one of the most haunted places in America.
Atchison, for its size, seem to have more ghosts per capita than any other town.
Author Lisa Hefner Heights wrote about Atchison's ghosts in her book, Haunted Kansas.
Atchison not only appreciated their ghosts, they cultivated their ghosts and their ghost stories.
So much so that Atchison has its own trolley tour of the town's haunted places.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atchison's Haunted Trolley. And tonight, it's our aim to bring you other experiences that are unseen but real.
Thousands of ghost enthusiasts from across the country climb aboard each year to experience all the thrills and chills Atchison has to offer.
To those of you who may still be skeptical, I submit the story of Sally. She is Atchison's most celebrated and best recorded ghost. Now, Sally was a little girl not far from your age when her mother brought her here to the home of her physician. He determined quickly that the problem was Sally's appendix, and the only way to solve that problem was to take the appendix out that night at that time. He reached over and grabbed the ether and put the wet rag over her face. She fell asleep. He reached over to grab his instruments. He didn't check carefully enough to see if she were asleep. He began the incision across her stomach. She was not yet asleep. She screamed, she sat up on the table, and she died on that table in that house.
People in Atchison claim that ghosts have been haunting the town for hundreds of years. But things changed in 1993 when a young couple who lived in this house went public with their very scary story.
I was holding my son at the time, and when it went through me, I just kind of glanced down, noticed these scratches bleeding pretty bad.
For Tony and Deborah Pickman, their tale of horror started innocently enough. They had just had their first child and moved into a new home. But soon, they began to notice odd things happening around the house.
You turn the TV off at night to go up the stairs, and you get halfway up the stairs and the TV turns back on. You turn the stereo off and you walk into the other room and it turns itself back on. And you think, well, maybe I didn't hit the switch off right, or you try and make an excuse. Your brain doesn't want to accept another reason.
I really didn't believe in ghosts. I'd never seen one, but I was probably a pretty good skeptic.
That was until the day when Tony says he was physically attacked.
I felt like something stung me on the back, so I asked her to look what bit me. She lifted up my shirt, and the expression on her face was, she said, "Oh my God." Well, I'm thinking, oh, what did I get bit by? Is this a spider bite? And there were 3 scratches across my back.
These photographs were taken by Deborah to show the scratch marks on Tony's back. The Pickmans claim that these bizarre scratchings continued to appear on Tony's body on a regular basis. The Pickmans also noticed something strange about their family photographs.
Things seemed to show up on all of them in some form, not always. And it was not just a blur on the lens, because we would take a picture here and we would take another additional picture, and there was still not a blur in both of them. It was just a one instant kind of thing.
Then one afternoon, Tony claims he was in the kitchen and got the surprise of his life.
There's this little girl dressed in, I would call it 18th century clothing, or a real white lacy dress, and just really out of the norm. And she was just staring at me with big eyes, just like she was more scared of me than I was of her, just like she was as shocked to see me as I was her. And I dropped the glass, and as soon as it hit the ground, she was gone.
Tony drew this picture of what the girl looked like. By now, the Pickmans wanted answers, so they asked a local psychic to visit their home and see if their house was haunted. They recorded the event on home video.
She said that we had a little girl spirit, a really sweet little girl spirit, about 6 or 7 or 8. And she was very protective of the baby. Her name was Sally, S-A-L-L-I-E instead of the L-Y.
Okay, she doesn't like us all in here. Yeah, she doesn't like it. She says, too many people are in here, get out.
But Sally, as the psychic called her, was apparently not the one scratching Tony.
She said that there was another woman in the house, and that this woman was doing things and blaming Sally for them.
Meanwhile, the TV show Sightings, which investigates reports of paranormal activity, had heard about the Pickman's story. In the fall of 1993, Sightings came to Atchison with their cameras to investigate. This is what appeared on the show.
Oh, my God, look. Oh, look, they're forming. It's forming right there.
She tends to do this to me because I upset her sometimes.
Little spots of blood begin to ooze out in a straight row on the length of that welt. And we sat there in a course of about 6 or 7 minutes and watched the blood just begin to stream out of that welt in the middle of his stomach.
Greg Cook was the field producer on the story.
It was a very spontaneous moment that nobody expected, and there was a rather shocking and horrific reaction to looking over and seeing this.
Sightings visited the Pickmans' home on several occasions. Each time, Tony developed unexplained scratch marks on his body.
They would stay anywhere from a day to 2 or 3 days, and he would come out worse for wear.
To the point when we'd hear they were coming or called to ask, we'd be like, oh man, I don't know if I can take another visit, because things just seem to get worse.
The program never manufactured anything. We were very careful to make sure that this was covered from all angles. We set up multiple cameras in the room to try to watch every movement, every possibility of any kind of sleight of hand that may have been going on. And we never found any piece of tape that revealed anything other than what we saw happening before our eyes.
When the show finally aired, the Pickman secret was out, and they became the talk of the town.
Everybody's like, oh, come on, where'd you come up with this story at? But as time went on and more people came over to the house, and they were hearing stories from more and more people, and it got a little bit more believable.
And some people just don't know what to think. They don't know whether to believe you. They're curious, lots of questions. But in the back of their minds, they're thinking, there's no possible way.
But for the Pickmans, it was real. After living in the house for almost 2 years, the Pickmans decided they had enough and left. Since then, Tony reports that he hasn't been scratched by a ghost again, nor has anyone else who has lived in the Sally house reported being scratched.
Our next stop is Benedictine College. In 1858, the college opened. The monks have lived here ever since, and they opened this building in 1893. And for almost 35 years, they lived and died in this building. And this academic year, there have been reports, once again, of sightings of ghosts and spirits and sounds of them, probably the restless old monks.
At Benedictine College, a local university founded by monks in 1858, students are convinced their sacred halls are haunted.
People hear pounding all the time in that building, and no one knows what it is.
After I began telling other people about my experiences, other people began telling me legends and lore that went along with this building.
Farrell Hall was built in 1895 as the Monks' Abbey. It sat boarded up for more than 30 years before it was renovated and reopened as the new freshman dorm. But when students moved in, they got more of an orientation than they bargained for.
Sometimes at night we would hear this loud banging, and we just thought that it was the people next door. They thought it was us.
Candace Doonan says she got the fright of her life one night when she was staying in her room alone.
I was really scared, and so I got my friend from the hall, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna look under the beds, go in the closet. I just want to have peace of mind so I sleep at night. So shut the closet doors. I went to bed, turned the lights off, went to bed, locked my door, and I slept right next to the door. And the next morning, my alarm goes off. I turn over, shut it off, turn back over, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And both of my closet doors were just flung wide open, and the lights were on, and I was just like, they weren't like cracked, they were like flung open. And so that really, really scared me, and I moved out as soon as I could, and I haven't been in that room since. I won't go in there.
For Chris Carey, the trouble in his room started late one night during orientation week. His roommates hadn't arrived yet.
I heard what sounded like somebody walking up and down the wall directly connecting with the lounge. So it really freaked me out. So I got up real quietly, snuck to the wall where it was walking. This noise sounded as if somebody was walking very slowly. As I moved towards the door, the footsteps mimicked where I was outside, and it would move with me or after I moved. And at this point,
the noise continued around the corner and was standing directly outside of my door. And it sounded like something was breathing outside of my door. It sounded what I would call a Darth Vader-like breathing. And at this point, the hairs on the back of my neck completely stood on end. And I had no idea what to do. I got real hot. You know, I didn't know if I was going to have to jump out the window or run down the hall. So just by instinct, I flipped the light on. And as soon as I did, the breathing stopped.
In disbelief, Chris invited 2 friends to his room the next night to check things out.
And just when I was about to give up and say, ghosts don't show up, you know, on cue, the breathing commenced out in the lounge, and we could hear something moving around out there. Well, one of them quickly freaked out immediately and flipped the lights on, and then, of course, it was lost at that point.
Chris eventually had his room blessed by a priest and says he never heard from his mysterious roommate again.
I really wish that, in a lot of ways, I hadn't had my room blessed, just to see, you know, if maybe the ghost and I could chill sometime on a Friday night.
Looking at many of the old homes, it's easy to see how people might think they're haunted. Take this house, for instance. One look might send you running.
This beautiful home is arguably the most spectacular and the most mysterious in Atchison. It's the Bailey Wagner home.
Bailey Wagner was a prominent local attorney in the mid-19th century. The story goes that he attributed his success in life to a pact he made with the devil. It's also been said that the second owner of the house fell to his death after trying to remove the gargoyles. Although there's no proof, it does make for a good story.
All of a sudden, the stereo or the lights would just flick on in the middle of the night. It just, you know, we don't know if that was just the energy that the 3 of us girls, being teenagers and all the same age, it could have been like a kinetic energy, but, you know, strange things like that would happen all the time.
But the family just assumed it was the result of old, faulty wiring. Then, one night, Leslie got the fright of her life.
I was about 12 years old, and I was in my room, and in the hall was a backlight of the hall light being on, and it was very dark in my room, and I looked up, and there was this entity standing, looking inside the door. I thought, okay, I'm having a dream, but I closed my eyes and I looked again, and there it was. I remember seeing it as a shadow. It wasn't, you know, there were no features. It was just a silhouette of a person, and I looked so briefly because it scared me. When I screamed for my mother, the entity was no longer there.
Her mother told her it was just a bad dream. But then, a few years later, when Leslie and her sisters were home alone, they got another big surprise.
We were in high school, and we had just come home from events of that evening, and we heard this really loud bang. Like, I liken the sound to a suitcase falling down the stairs. Boom, 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 boom. And we both ran out and met each other at the staircase and looked up, and there was nothing there.
The noise was coming from the attic, but when they went up to investigate, there was nothing there except an eerie silence.
They never heard us, they were just there. And we just sort of learned to live with it. We were young, so we were able to do that.
According to the British Society for Psychical Research, the 13th most haunted place on Earth is Athens, Ohio.
I think it's the combination of things here in Athens. You have strange things, ghosts, poltergeist activity. The room with the 666, wait a minute, figure this out. Yeah, a spooky cemetery. You throw in a crying angel, a haunted mental health center, residence halls that have ghostly inhabitants walking the halls at night, and you end up with a pretty spooky but pretty special place. I can't name one person I know on campus, and I know quite a few people that haven't had some experience or know someone that's had an experience. I've met a couple people that have felt very uncomfortable here from the start and said that they will never ever set foot in Athens, Ohio again. You'll be surprised how many people call you and say, oh, you won't believe what's going on in our hall right now.
The Spook File is a collection of newspaper and eyewitness accounts of unexplained events in Athens.
The spook file is the most heavily used item in our department. Yes, there are all kinds of unusual events and unexplained events that may be paranormal, and there are certainly a lot of unexplained events that never end up with any resolution.
Documents in the spook file reveal a disturbing link between 5 local cemeteries and the town of Athens.
When these 5 cemeteries are connected, they form a pentagram around the city of Athens, with the center of this being at the very center of campus. As you branch out, you begin to hit residence halls and the ridges, the mental health center, and you hit areas that are just chock full, really, of ghost stories and of legends behind them.
There are several reasons why there's so much stuff going on here, and I'm going to explain a few of them.
I decided to take people out into where it actually happens. Sometimes we see some stuff that we really just can't explain away.
In 1873, the Athens Lunatic Asylum opened its doors.
The Ridges at night is I think a horror movie waiting to happen. Part of me is really excited to go into the Ridges because it's an opportunity that not a lot of people have. To be able to get in there and explore and see what we can find, and there's so many legends.
Originally, when it would open its doors, it was a big sign over the wrought iron facade was the Lunatic Asylum.
Now, of course, it has this new name, the Ridges, to help describe, perhaps, its geographic look, a structure of 18 million bricks.
And there on the top of this hill are these Victorian, beautiful but very spooky, very unsettling buildings. When you imagine what a 19th century mental hospital would have looked like, this is it. There are some of the rooms you can look through and still see shackles on the wall where the inmates were shackled.
Okay, now you're in the basement of Building 18. Everything's connected by either the basements or tunnels, which you see the tunnel going through down at the end of it there.
Oh, look at this. New patients, records 1943, 1945, 46, 48.
The asylum was a regular stop for a physician who conducted extreme medical procedures. He was known as Dr. Lobotomy.
He would travel around the country in a station wagon and his little tools, you know, his ice picks. And this guy could do up to 20 lobotomies a day, because it would only take 30, 40 seconds to run that ice pick through somebody's temple and spin it around a little bit and destroy their frontal lobes. And then off he'd go.
Oh, God! In 1979, the asylum was closed. The patients were transferred, all but one.
A woman disappeared. They searched the institution 3 times, couldn't find her anywhere.
The family had missed her and inquired as to where she was. So they had made searches, and I guess they had made several searches, you know, like in 2-week intervals, but they never found her.
Sometimes you'll actually look up there and you'll see the window and they see something peering down upon them, which obviously creeps anyone out.
Many people report an apparition.
And in this one window, you could just barely see a presence. I promise you, I know it sounds exaggerated, but you could tell there was something up there.
Year after year after year of sightings of a woman moving from room to room through the windows. Let's go see what's going on.
It's around the corner.
I thought he went over here.
Oh, God! Bats are not fun.
When the missing woman's body was eventually found, it had left a bizarre imprint.
And she come over, possibly, to look out the window. Maybe to see somebody to yell for help. But she took her clothes off and folded them real neatly and stacked them in the window. And then she laid down here.
Everything. You can see where she laid down.
It feels funny. Like I got chills when I walked in here. Really?
In 1981, a student who touched the stain claimed the dead woman's spirit followed her back to her dorm room.
One night she was asleep. She opened her eyes and saw a face floating level with her head. It was a woman's face. This, of course, freaked her out greatly, really frightened her. No one heard anything for 3 or 4 days. They went in to check on the student to see what was wrong. She had killed herself in Wilson Hall. Ever since then, it has really held the reputation as the most haunted place on campus.
Just do me a favor, and everybody just sort of crouch down and get a good hold of this grass, feel the ground. The ground you're feeling right now is Indian burial ground, sacred ground to Native Americans. So this has been a holy grave site for centuries. If you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and start heading into Wilson and see what we can come up with, see what we can find. You guys set? All right. Most people never get the chance to see what you guys are about to see. What we're going to do is, again, we're right here at the gateway to Wilson. The most haunted room on campus is just 4 flights of stairs straight up. All right? Let's head on up. Like I said, 4 flights right up here.
We've had several students with a lot of what I've heard referred to as like a psychic slap in the face, where you walk into a place and you're hit by something that makes your hair stand on edge and puts you in a really uneasy state.
Creepy building.
It is. You're absolutely right. Right here through this door is pretty much right where it happens. This is the hallway where most of the ghostly activity is centered. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Like I said, we've looked out. I've got the key. I got the key from the university to open the door here. Come on up here, and I'll show you guys something on the door, and then we'll fill you in on the story a little bit more. This is the door where people say that sometimes you can see an outline of a demonic face take place. It's in the wood grain. Let's see if we can see it. It's a little... Yeah, right here. See the eyes? Did you see it, Amy? Did you see it? Did you see it? Horns right here. The eyes. It's right there. Right there. Here's the story. There was a student. She was into practicing the black arts, whether it was some sort of perverted witchcraft or demonic worship, we don't know. But very soon after she moved in, people on the floor began witnessing very strange phenomena. At night, they would hear chanting coming from within the room, chanting and strange guttural growling sounds. Books would fall off of bookshelves, brushes would fly across the room, doors would slam themselves shut with no wind. Following that point, that night of terror where no one could sleep, they didn't hear from her again. 3 or 4 days later, the RA, the resident assistant, became concerned and keyed into the room to find that she had committed suicide. But before she had done that, she had smeared symbols and words all over the walls in her own blood. After that, the university cleaned up the room, and the students, new students moved in the next year. But sure enough, they weren't in the room but a few days when things began to move. Doors would slam, drawers would open and shut, and right there on the wall, that red blood began to seep through coat after coat of paint. And that happened no matter how many times they painted it over. Eventually, no one would live in the room. So it was turned into a boiler room that we're going to see. We're going in, okay? We're going to go on in. Okay. Come on in. Come on in. But if you come right over here, you can see where the wall was taken out. That's the wall that had the blood coming through it. The university, the only way to stop it was to completely destroy the, another door slam. The only way to do it was to completely take out the wall. It was the only way to stop that from coming through.
Can we go?
Oh, it's just a board. It's a board. It's a board. Okay. All right. Do you guys want to go? Do you want to get out of here? All right. Let's go. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Let's get. Yeah. Yeah. Let's get out of here. What happened? There was a knock on the door.
Yes, on that one. Like a
oh my God.
Like that.
I'm breathing so hard right now. She's right here. She's standing right here.
Got some serious chills.
I just want to go.
All right.
Outside.
Okay. All right. Let's get the door open and get out of here. Let's get the door open. No. No. We need to go. We need to go out this way. We need to go out here.
That was not a jingle. That was a.
That was a push. I didn't hear it. I was still in the back.
That was a.
I can't. Yeah, my heart is racing. That's the room. Well, that's the room at the end of the hall right there. You know, you hear stories about stuff that, you know, this room's creepy or whatever, and you show up and it's a room, but that was.
It's got something to it.
No, yeah, that was definitely one of the most chilling places I think I've ever been.
Paris, France, a city of stunning beauty and light. But underneath Paris, there is a darker world. Below the city lies a labyrinth of ancient tunnels and mass graves known as the catacombs. Dangerous and largely unmapped, the catacombs have been sealed off to the public for decades. It is down here that a video camera containing mysterious footage was discovered.
This video camera was found deep in the catacombs. It was picked up by a catacomb explorer, some of the people who wandered down there. It was given to me. I looked at the tape. It's very bizarre. It's a point of view shot. A point of view shot is somebody just walking forwards with the camera. So basically he's filming what he's seeing. Endless. Very deep inside the catacombs. Other than the point of view shots are pictures of bones. Human bones. These were the poor Parisians who died over the last 1,000 years.
In 1785, millions of bodies were exhumed from Paris cemeteries and dumped into the catacombs.
This person occasionally stops and he photographs bones, often in the shape of an arrow. These arrows point in a direction. Occasionally also, he stops to photograph roomfuls of bones, which means that he's very, very deep inside the catacombs. What happened to him? Nobody knows.
Filmmaker Francis Friedland was determined to solve the mystery of the lost catacombs explorer.
I mean, there are 400 miles of tunnels like this. So I brought the tape to a cataphile, an urban explorer. Cataphiles are strange people. They're people who have this passion for the catacombs. These people go down there to find new passages, new entries, new bones, new skeletons. Lézard is probably the person in Paris who knows the catacombs better than anyone. So according to Lézard, the person is not someone who knew his way around. My intention right now is to go down with a still photographer, Vincent, a friend. I'm also going to take an excellent sound man, Francis, to spend some time in the catacombs and try to solve the mystery. There are ways to match things up, to try to identify where this person was in the catacombs. At times you'll see there's signs, painted signs on the wall, which is not uncommon. People have been painting in the catacombs for centuries. So it is possible with these paintings that we may be able to retrace his itinerary to some extent. After about 40 minutes of these point-of-view shots and these pictures of bones, the person begins to walk faster and faster. Then he begins to run. We hear his breathing get louder and louder, as though something was scaring him. He's frightened, he's frightened. Occasionally he stops, perhaps to try to decide which way to run among all the many different corridors. He's running faster and faster and faster, deeper and deeper into the catacombs. And all of a sudden, he drops the camera. He just dropped. The camera just drops on the ground and keeps rolling. And you see his feet just run away. And it keeps rolling until it runs out of tape. Francis and I are going to now meet the director of the Catacombs Museum, who has nothing to do with the cataphiles, doesn't even want to know about the cataphiles, but he may have some information, and hopefully he can let us look at some maps of the catacombs.
In Paris, you have as many miles of tunnels underground as there are streets above ground. No one knows just how many passageways exist in the catacombs, but we believe that they go down over 300 feet. Some are filled with water, and many tunnels have collapsed over the years. It's an enormous maze. We think there are as many as 7 levels to it, spreading under the entire city.
How do you get into the catacombs? Illegally, of course, and the idea is to find an entrance. The problem is that the authorities keep shutting them down. Apparently, Lézard has found a new way to get in, but it's way out from the center of town. It's actually on the edge of the city, through the railroad tracks for about a mile, and then this little hole in the ground, and we have to crawl through it. And he could still be down there. Maybe he found his way out. Nobody knows. We'll try to solve the mystery if we can. This videographer, he could still be down there. Maybe he found his way out. Nobody knows. My intentions now, as I've seen the tape, is to go down there, to try to find out what happened. So we'll try to solve the mystery if we can. So the trick is to watch not only your feet, but your head. I have never been very deep into the catacombs before. Very few people have. I don't know what to expect. Already when you enter the catacombs, the first few hundred yards are already scary. You have to crawl. You can bump your head. It's pitch black. As you're walking, you trip upon rocks, holes. You can fall pretty deep.
There are 400 miles of tunnels within the catacombs. Many of these passages lead to lower levels.
Really, the tunnels are so incredibly vast, our chances of finding the lost man are probably very slim. But we do know by looking at his video that he got as far as these lower levels, where we are now.
Is it okay?
Anybody can get lost in here. Anyone can get lost in here. I mean, imagine just running out of batteries on your flashlight. You're dead. You're dead. It's true. I mean, just look at this. You lose your flashlight. What happens? We're finished. We're dead.
The explorers traveled 6 miles into the catacombs with no sign of the lost man.
This is my own opinion, but this is far too deep for an amateur to be messing around. He must have lost his way down some passage and died.
After 6 hours, the group was exhausted and running low on batteries. Francis decided to abandon the search.
There's a manhole up there, which is supposed to be open to get out, but apparently it's locked, or Lizardo's having a difficult time opening it up. We're gonna have to backtrack and walk back the 5 or 6 miles to get coming here. That would be hours and hours and hours. And let's hope our batteries don't die on us in the meantime. So close, yet so far. We're 10 feet from freedom and we can't get out. It's about 60 feet from here to the street. Well, it looks like a manhole. There's no way to get out of it. You need to be a mountain climber to get out of it. I think I saw this on the tape. This figure with the arms outstretched, the legs outstretched. And I think after this, the camera turns right.
Donc là, on va passer sur un passage de flotte.
This is really Lunatic. That's a lot of bones. I'm standing on dozens of corpses, just walking on them. You can't see the bottom. I don't even know how deep this is. You could be walking on thousands of corpses here. Look how deep this thing goes. It looks like the killing fields. According to Lézard, if you search through these catacombs, you could find the gate to hell. Perhaps this person found it by accident. This is the gate to hell. Hours underground. I'm sorry that I got my buddies involved in this. It was very tough. We didn't solve the mystery. I don't think anyone ever will. There's too many miles of tunnels in there. But we'll never understand what frightened whoever it was that dropped the stake.
Has ghost stories on its shelves. But when
Zach and Lisa visit Willard Library, they aren't just reading a ghost story, they're trapped in one.
My name is Zach, and I'm 17, and I live in Evansville, Indiana. Evansville's a little bit slow for me. It's a good place to raise a family, I think. It's not a good place if you're 17 and looking for excitement.
Evansville's very small, but it's a good small. It's the right size.
I think everybody in Evansville knows about the ghost at Willard Library to some extent. Everybody knows something. Everybody knows something about the lady in gray. I don't believe in ghosts. I kind of have to see it to believe it, or it's not the truth for me.
Zach doesn't believe in ghosts, and I do, and that's just the difference of opinions.
Tonight, Lisa and I will be going to a haunted library to search for the supposed lady in gray.
Hopefully we'll see a ghost.
Local myth has it that the Willard Library is haunted by Lady in Gray.
There have been literally hundreds of sightings and encounters and feelings.
Anyone that has said they have seen her, she's always dressed in gray.
They believe Lady in Gray is Louise Carpenter, the daughter of Willard Carpenter.
He was a great philanthropist and did a wonderful thing when he built this library, but he was especially miserly when it concerned his family. When Mr. Carpenter passed away, he left his fortune to support the library.
I think she was pretty bitter. Probably died pretty unhappy. I would, at least.
The Lady in Gray was first sighted in 1937 by the library janitor. He encountered a woman, and he could see right through her. He shined his flashlight right through her.
Since I've been here, I've had a few unexplained experiences here at the library, ranging from thinking you hear footsteps when there's nobody else in the room, to strange things happening with the books.
Books being rearranged, books jumping off shelves.
I was sitting at my desk working, and behind me there's 2 monitors. I saw something on a monitor, and it went from one monitor into the other monitor, and everything else that was in the monitor was really clear. But whatever it was that was moving, you could not see it.
We have an alarm system. It's the creepiest when there is no apparent reason for the alarm to have gone off.
I've made 3, maybe 4 alarms at Willard Library. When you come in at night, it's kind of creepy. You know, everything creaks and groans, and like I say, the Gray Lady, you know, you've got these stories in the back of your mind.
Not sure if I'm scared, but I'm not sure if I'd want to see her face to face.
The last alarm I made with Kim, we never found any apparent cause for the alarm.
If I saw a ghost or, you know, Lady in Gray, what have you, it would answer a lot of questions, you know. It would take care of a lot of thinking for me. At least I'd know something was going on when you die.
I think that if Zach sees a ghost, he'll believe in him. Zach and I are going to Willard Library and meet Tim Hart.
I've investigated the Willard Library 3 times. Every time that I've been here, I get something on the static fields, something paranormal or anomalous.
Lisa's into science, so this might prove her point about the Willard.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Zach. Nice to meet you. So what are you looking for whenever you measure all this stuff?
Fluctuating electromagnetic fields, anomalous phenomena.
Investigators use devices to detect unusual changes in static
electricity or temperature. They call these changes anomalous phenomena and believe they can indicate
the presence of a spirit. But what these devices can't tell you
is whether the ghost is good
or evil.
What you want to do is walk around with this. And if it goes to 7 or above, that's when you might have some kind of anomalous activity. And if you hear that, that means there's something going on, okay?
That right there?
Yeah.
So there's something going on?
Well, that's because it's warming up. If it goes above 7 while you're sitting somewhere, definitely take a picture.
Okay.
Okay?
Let's go.
You're on your own.
Thanks.
See you later.
Oddly enough, the most sightings or feelings or senses of the ghost presence has actually occurred in the basement area, which is also where the children's department is located.
This way.
Where you want to go? Turn the sun on and everything.
We go around this way.
I don't know, none of these things are flipping out or anything, so let's see what else we can find. That scared the heck out of me. All right, fear's kind of like a common link between everybody, you know what I mean? Everybody fears something. It may not be the same thing, but it feels the same whenever they get scared. Everybody knows what it feels like. It's just kind of sink in your stomach, you know what I mean? Your kind of heart drops down. For a split second, you're real frantic. You don't exactly know how to react. So we went upstairs, and we searched around the genealogy room for a little bit.
The meters are reading 0.
And Lisa and I decided that we were going to split up. You got your walkie-talkie? All right.
Got it.
All right, just turn it on. Yell at me if you need anything. This thing's kind of fun. Take that.
I went down to the basement in the children's area. Zach stayed in the genealogy room.
According to local legend, the Lady in Gray is easily angered by those who
deny her existence. Zach hopes he can use the legend to draw her out by making her angry. There's nothing in this library. If there were anybody who could make the apparition angry enough to actually manifest itself, that would probably be me. I'm pretty good at making people mad. Susan City. Her dad was crazy. When she was alive, the Lady in Gray was denied ownership of the Willard Library.
In death, she has claimed it as her own. Zach taunts her, hoping she will reveal herself. But while Zach taunts her,
is she about to haunt them?
Zach,
What's up?
are you taunting the ghost?
What?
Are you taunting the ghost?
Oh, well, I don't know what else I can do except, what else are you gonna do? There's nothing going on. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. What else are you gonna do?
I think you need to do a better job.
I guess I'll, see if I can't work a little bit harder. I don't know, man. I'm not feeling it. I'm telling you, there's nothing in this building at all.
What's that noise?
You know what it is? It's the library you're really bored. That's what this is. Librarians get really, really, really bored, and so they gotta start dreaming up stuff to do. And if the ghost isn't Louise Carpenter, it's a gentle ghost, so my coaxing or insulting wouldn't really do any good, you know what I mean? Just kind of chill, not worry about it. A book?
Just random.
Did you go over and check it out?
Other rocking chair.
You gonna go check it out?
Go ahead.
Alright, so let's go. Let's check this out. I think that's a book.
Zach,
What?
did you find anything?
Yeah. Check this out.
Where was it at?
Well, I don't know how in the world it got on the floor, because it came from right here, and it was about 4 feet away.
Are you serious?
Well, it was like, it's like, what, 5 feet?
But 5 feet, like it didn't just fall.
Well, no, this is, McGruffy's Eclectic Reader. You want to look at this book?
No.
Fine. Will you tell me how old this book is?
Nope.
So you weren't actually in the Peacock Room or anything, yeah?
That's where it started, and I heard something like a chair rocking or something.
So let's go over here and see what's going on with this record chair. What's going on with the music?
Zach.
What?
Can you hurry up?
It apparently jumped up, It apparently jumped up.
Huh?
It apparently jumped up.
For what?
To like 9.
When?
Just now, just for like a split. It's chilling at like 0 right now, but whatever, I don't know.
All right, well, I feel really
At
good
least,
to be
I'm
get
not-
out. I just want to get out of here.
You don't hang out? You want to leave?
Yeah, I want to leave.
You seriously want to go?
I want to leave. I've had enough. I want to get out of here.
It's cool. Let's go. Apparently, Lisa was haunted.
I heard a book, it sounded like a book, fly across and hit something. I wanted to get out of there. I'm not sure if it was a ghost or not, but a lot of things happened that were unexplainable.
The meters obviously measured something. The book was really old, as if it might have been from the era that these people lived. If it was Louise Carpenter, it would make sense that she was trying to let people know that she was there, she wasn't going anywhere. And it was her library. When Mark and his classmates set out to investigate the hauntings at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, they interviewed the townspeople and filmed their stories.
Then they went into the cemetery and got a story of their own.
Everyone in the Chicagoland area, especially on the south side, has heard about the supernatural occurrences that happen in and around the Bachelor's Grove area.
If you've ever seen a really scary movie where the cemetery is just overgrown with weeds, this is that cemetery.
And so I wanted to do a project on the Bachelor's Grove area for my TV production class. So am I going to be scared tonight, or?
Well, you're going to one of the most haunted cemeteries in Illinois, so.
I'm Mark, and I live in Midlothian, Illinois, and go to Bremen High School. I take a class called TV production, and in that class we learn about all the different equipment used in TV production, and we also do our own projects. Midlothian is a beautiful suburb in the south of Chicago, and it's also home to one of the most haunted cemeteries in the nation, called Bachelor's Grove.
I believe that it is haunted. I believe that pretty much all the places that they say are haunted, I believe something happened there. There's floating orbs of blue light, disappearing farmhouses.
Al Capone dumped a few bodies in the lagoon there.
Bodies that were dumped into that lagoon kind of found a resting place in Bachelor's Grove Cemetery.
And that's why I heard it's haunted.
Yes, I know, isn't that freaky?
Some people think in a small town that there's nothing really going on, but we have like this really haunted cemetery so close to us.
I do believe in spirits and everything. I mean, it is a cemetery, so I mean, that's the place where stuff is going to happen most likely.
And I think a video project is a good way to learn about it.
Right there.
I started off by going around town and asking the locals what they knew about the Grove. And they told me a lot of different stories, a lot of personal accounts, and a lot of stories that I've already heard. But it was all really interesting.
Legend has it that there had been a farmhouse.
Most people describe it as a larger home, very ominous looking. And as you approach this house, it starts to shrink away smaller and smaller and then disappears.
A few of us went back there, and my brother Pat and another guy were standing back there, and out from the tree line came, I guess it'd be the caretaker of the house. He started screaming, him and the two guys he was with, because the caretaker was running after him. And they said they were throwing rocks, and the rocks just passing right through the caretaker.
I talked to Monty, an expert ghost hunter.
March of this year, me and my girlfriend had went out there, and we're in the pond area. This was an area where the mobsters that put their victims in the 1920s and 1930s. Well, directly over the pond, we saw a blue orb about the size of a mini basketball.
Paranormal experts believe that orbs, the spots of light that sometimes appear on photographs, are spirits captured on film.
I don't believe this to be any kind of lens flare, simply because there are no reflective surfaces. It was taken in a dark cemetery pretty late at night. And as well as these orbs that we pick up out at Bachelor's Grove, we also pick up fogs and mists that aren't normally seen with the eye as well. This happens to be a foggy night, and the fog is pretty consistent throughout the photo and literally showed up in every photograph that I took that night. If it was a foggy night, this would definitely show up in more photos.
I spoke with a town historian to try and get a little more history on the Grove.
In our collections at the Historical Society, we have a drawing of the cemetery, which helped us in our research to document the families and the individuals that are buried there. We found some 5 miles from the cemetery, a small child's stone from the cemetery. There is a story about a ghost woman. Sometimes it's a woman in white, and she leaves a fresh flower on a child's grave. There is some people that think that this infant, Emma, was the child's grave that the flower is being left at.
There are a lot of stories, and a lot of them are very convincing. Even though I'd like to believe a lot of these legends, I won't believe anything until I see it.
Krista and Lisa entered the cemetery. The plan was to split up, to keep in constant communication, and to remain calm. Things didn't go as planned.
Stories I've heard about Bachelor's Grove range from flying orbs to Al Capone's dead victims in the bottom of the pond to a house that you can't reach because it disappears once you get up close to it. There are a lot of stories, and I'd like to believe them all, but I need proof before I believe them for myself.
You've never been to Bachelor's Grove before? I can't believe you live there. You've lived here all your life and you've never gone there.
I've never been to the Grove myself.
Why haven't you ever been there?
I don't know,
Are you scared?
No, I'm not scared. I've never been to the Grove before because a lot of my friends are really afraid to go there. But I'm gonna go ahead and investigate it anyway. Then I met up with Larissa and Lisa. We made plans to sit in the Grove at night with our camcorders, videotaping, to see if anything would show up on the videos.
There's flowers in there too. It's pretty.
Where?
Little flowers, like carved in.
Oh, I thought you meant like fresh flowers. We saw a gravesite, and there was no flower laying on it. But then a few hours later, on the same gravesite, there was a flower laying there. There was nobody around there but us.
Really new. Didn't we come down this one?
Right, we didn't see that there. It looks pretty fresh.
I just wonder if it's us not paying attention or if it's for real.
That was the first time that we were really creeped out.
You realize that right now we are like above the remains of people.
I had a plan in my head about the investigation that night. Larsa and you and me will all like take like an area, and then we get an hour's worth of footage in. Is that cool?
Well,
Like what? Like what are you thinking?
I am like terrified of being here, and you're gonna send me on a trail by myself in the dark.
So I decided that Lisa and Larissa would go down to the pond together, and that I would stay in the cemetery. All right, make sure that you're talking and saying, you know, all right, this is what's going on.
We are heading towards the pond where the dead lobster bodies are supposed to be. There we go.
What's going on here? This is good.
Oh my God, there's the pond.
Yes.
I almost walked right into it.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Good luck. I'll see you in an hour.
Okay, be careful.
Bye.
Be careful and do not go in the vanishing house, Mark!
I had constant communications with the girls. Hello, you guys okay over there?
We're over here camped out by the swamp, and we haven't really seen anything yet. It stays that way between you and me.
And so it begins. Just starting this hour of me being by myself. Nothing so far. I'll keep it posted. This place is definitely out there, I'll tell you that much. I was filming the trees and the grave sites and everything that was around me when I was sitting, but I wasn't getting much of anything.
Mark, we can see you from here.
No, I can't see you guys, so I don't think you can see me. I don't know.
I hear something. What do you hear?
Like noises over the swamp, like something. Oh, I heard it. I'm serious.
Lisa, you there? Hi, Mark, I'm here.
What's going on?
She thought she heard something by the pond, so we're checking it out.
They figured that I was close by, so they weren't afraid.
Honey, you're gonna be fine. Just talk to Lisa.
If you call me sweet things one more time, I'm gonna beat your head in.
Larissa, call. We have a half an hour left.
Let's just do it for one more half hour and we'll be all right.
I can't, Mark. Talking to myself is the only way that I'm not gonna be that scared. So I'm gonna talk about everything that we've seen so far. I just keep hearing like tree branches crack, and I don't know if it's us or like animals or something else, but I have this like a very like, not a bad feeling, but like I'm apprehensive, and I don't know if that's me.
Ask Mark if he was moving.
Mark?
Because that was a lot of twigs moving.
Were you moving just now?
Something scared Lisa and Larissa really bad.
We just heard some twigs snapping. We just freaked us out a little bit. It's okay.
Are you guys all right? You guys all right?
For like the past 5 minutes, she's really, really scared. I gotta be honest with you, I am too. This is freaking me out. I don't really want to stay out here too much longer.
Mark, now I heard footsteps. Now I am scared, okay?
I'm scared, Lisa.
You guys, what's going on?
Lisa, Larissa, somebody talk to me.
We just heard some footsteps that were like, you know, one after another, not like a twig breaking from a squirrel. So that just freaked us out a little bit.
Are you guys gonna be okay?
No!
She says no.
I'm so scared.
Seeing the girls in that state was frightening enough for me.
So I am checking in again, and like Larissa's really scared, and I'm kind of scared now too.
I just felt a cold spot. It's 10:55, and we are coming up there.
Okay, I hear you. Let's just get out of here.
We bailed on the project about 20 minutes before planned.
We are now leaving the pond site. We thought we passed through a lot of cold spots. When we were coming from the pond area, we were walking past the pond up by the cemetery, and we felt a big difference of temperature coming from where we were at to the pond. So I don't know what that means, but we felt it. Wait a minute, hold up. You were over here or were you over there the whole time?
What?
Were you here the whole time?
Or were you over there? Wait. No. You were...
You guys, I haven't moved the entire time we were here.
You were here the whole time. You weren't by that tree over by the big stone?
No, I was not.
We said wave. Why would you... We said wave at us, and you waved back at us.
Yeah, from here. It definitely wasn't me. I was a pretty far ways away from there.
No.
Guys, don't talk anymore. Let's just get back, all right? They were really creeped out when they found out that they were staring at somebody that definitely wasn't me.
But from where you said you were, there's no way we could have seen you because you were set back in the graveyard, but this was like right there.
They looked like they were looking at us. Well, if it wasn't Mark that we saw, and he obviously wouldn't lie to us about the project. He wouldn't say, oh, I was there and he wasn't there. So if it wasn't him, there's nothing else that could describe it except if it was that lady in white.
When we first started this whole project, I knew that we were going to get some information, maybe, find out a few things about the cemetery that I didn't know before, but we ended up finding out a lot more than I had bargained for.
Yeah, I think that we got, on our part, a successful project because even if we didn't get it on tape, at least we saw it, right. And
I think they were a very dramatic project on my part because I was...
Right, to show how the fear of the cemetery can make a person change.
Yeah, I'm in a different state now than I was about 20 minutes ago when I was still in there, and I really do think it's a real scary place, and I think it's haunted.
In the winter, the population of Virginia City drops to about 100,
if you don't count the dead.
Virginia City is definitely haunted.
Definitely, I think this town is haunted.
The majority of people that have lived here have seen ghosts.
There's been numerous sightings in Virginia City.
I'm Jana, and I live in a haunted town.
The whole place is haunted.
Virginia City is kind of in the middle of nowhere. Our closest town is Bozeman, and it's like 60 miles away. So we're kind of isolated, I guess you could say. There's only about 100 people that live here during the winter, and so it kind of gets a really eerie feeling.
This whole town has a history of murder and violence, and I think that's why things are unsettled here.
Gold was discovered here May 26, 1863. With the coming of a large number of prospectors, crime was out of control.
More than a murder a day happening on the streets here.
The local citizens took the law into their own hands.
Started hanging bad guys.
Everyone that was murdered back then just kind of hangs around here.
This town seems to have spirits, I would think, in just about every building.
The Ellings house, the Bonanza Inn, the Bonanza house, the Lightning Splitter, they're all haunted.
You hear stories, it can't be disputed. There's a lot of spirits here.
The scariest place in my town is the Ellings house.
The Elling house was built by Henry Elling, the banker of town.
The story is that he killed all of his family, everyone in different rooms in a different way.
The house sat empty for 40 years. No one lived there.
For years now, all the kids in Virginia City have always seen a man standing in the very top window. We think that it's Mr. Elling.
I was talked into going into the Elling house by my older brother, and me and a friend of mine, James, went in there and explored the place. And I walked into a room, came back out, and he disappeared. So I spent a half an hour in the house walking around looking for him, heard a scream, and an eerie fingernails on a chalkboard noise. Something was clawing at the walls. Finally, got to the point where I was so scared that I just huddled up in a corner and sat there and waited. And a little while later, my friend and his older brother came into the house and found me in a corner. And I have not been back in the house alone since.
It's a little creepy to be alone in the fair weather.
2 years ago, there was a clerk working, and there was no one in the hotel. There had been no one there for a couple days, and she was sitting at the desk. All of a sudden, she heard banging in the room above her, and there was pounding on the floors, and then she heard something break. So she went upstairs, and all the sheets and blankets were torn off the bed, tables and furniture was knocked over, and there was no sign of anyone in the room whatsoever, and it was locked. Tonight, I'm daring my friend Chris to stay alone in the Elling house till midnight.
And I've dared Jana to stay in the Fairweather till midnight.
Now that this dare has been brought up, I'm a little more nervous as it's getting closer, but I'm determined to make it.
Chris and Jana dared each other to stay alone in a haunted place. Whoever made it until midnight would walk away the winner if they didn't run away.
I'm gonna go to the Fairweather, dude, and you have to stay in your place. I bet you chicken out. We're gonna do this, midnight. I'll meet you back here.
Okay.
Chris and I decided to each take in a flashlight, a video camera that had night vision on it, and a candle. Once we got into the building and our designated room that we were gonna stay, that the candle was the only thing that we were gonna have lit. No flashlights until midnight. Okay, this is it. Oh boy. It's dark.
For some reason, the second time going in this house is worse than the first. It's like something out of a horror movie.
It's so cold. Oh, this is room number 10. I know people have seen spirits here. Okay, that was creepy. Oh, okay. I'm in room 10.
This is, well, it's kind of covered up, but that's the window that Mr. Allen looks out, or his ghost looks out.
Light my candle. Light. Okay, out with the light. I can see my breath. It's so cold.
Still in the same room, waiting for something to happen.
Okay, I'm gonna watch my candle.
I can't tell you how I'm feeling right now. Want to see something, don't want to see something.
Let's check out the ceiling in this place.
I look pretty cute.
There wasn't much for them to do except wait for something to happen.
Then suddenly, the waiting was over. For Jana.
There's something outside my room, and it's walking. Oh. It's walking. It's walking more. Please don't open my door.
You really want to see a ghost? I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That did not just happen.
Wondering if it's going to come from behind, if it's going to come through the walls, or if it's just going to appear right in front of me.
Please don't open my door. Please don't open. It's walking again.
Wouldn't mind seeing a ghost or something?
I don't hear any more noises. Okay, that was the scariest thing I've heard all night.
Kind of glad that nothing actually happened to me. Time's not up yet.
Why is the time going so slow? It's like hours, hours. I have 30 seconds.
My chair, my candle. Candle's still going.
I don't want to say it, but I just keep waiting for that doorknob to turn. That's my biggest fear right now. Ten seconds. 10 seconds.
Clock has struck 12.
It's midnight. I did it. It's midnight.
Take our candle with us as we end our journey.
I know something is outside that door, and I know I have to go outside that door. Okay. I don't think anything's... It's not... Okay. Oh. Okay. I'm not seeing anything. Okay. Here we go. I'm coming out. Finally getting out of the Fairweather Inn was the most relieving thing. When I heard the walking, it was really creepy. It was so close, and it was, at that point, I was ready to give up. But I had already told myself prior to going in the hotel that no matter what, I was not gonna leave. So if I had to stand there and scream all night, that's what I was gonna do, because I was gonna stay there till midnight.
Did you make it?
I made it.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
I'm so freaked out. I was counting the seconds. Did you see a ghost?
No. Even though I didn't see a ghost, I felt like I had conquered a fear. You have a bad experience, and it's kind of like getting back on a horse after you get bucked off.
There's absolutely no doubt that there was something standing outside my door, and then I felt it leave. There's no doubt in my mind it was there.